Everybody, welcome to Stamping with Melva. Just give me a minute to get things going on my Facebook group, and then we're all set. All right, I think it's happening here. It just takes a minute longer than it used to take, as I kind of do both two steps to get live in my Facebook group, but looks like I'm there. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. I'm Stamping with Melva. I live in British Columbia, Canada. So I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in British Columbia, Canada, and you can find me online at stampingwithmelva.com. So it's Sunday today. It's a hot Sunday here. We're having a few days of hot weather for us, which is about over 30 degrees, which kind of gets hot on the west coast. And so I'm enjoying being in my craft room because I actually have air conditioning up here. We don't have it in the rest of the house, but my craft room is above the garage, and so it gets very hot up here. So we have a portable air conditioner, and it's kind of nice to be in the cool for part of the day anyway. All right, so today I wanted to share with you a card. Now, I made this card. I did a demonstration for the Canada Inks app team meeting a little while back, and where I was playing using the Layers of Beauty decorative masks and doing some watercoloring. So I thought I would play with that again today. It's always fun, at least for me, because it's one of those techniques where you don't know what you're going to get and what it's going to look like. And maybe that's not for everybody, but I quite enjoy that. And so I'm going to make a card using the Layers of Beauty. Actually, the whole bundle. It's the decorative masks, the stamp set, and the dies come in the bundle. So I'm using all three parts of it today for this, but I'm going to focus on the masks to get started. All right, I will switch over and we'll get started. Okay, so first of all, this is the card that I made on the Canada Inks Up team call. And so this background of the flowers is this image, and it was done, the coloring of it was done using on watercolor paper, using the masks like you would do with your Stampin' your blending brushes. But in this case, we're using our water painters and on Fluid 100 watercolor paper. So let's get started. So the first thing you need is some Fluid 100 watercolor paper. So I'm using the whole sheet. It's a piece that's 5 by 7. And I'm using grid paper so it doesn't get all over my glass mat. I can control it a little bit. And I'm just going to position this in place so that doesn't move. We're going to use all of the masks. There are 5 of them, and so these masks let you feel, at least they make me feel like an artist. Hey Nancy, because it takes the kind of guesswork or the thinking out of the coloring of the masks, and so they are numbered. There's a notch in them in the top left corner so you can line them up, and they are numbered 1 to 5. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of line them up on the paper so I get a position where they will all, after I get them marked, I can easily position that, the mask, each of the masks. I'm going to start with this number 5. And the only reason I do that, if I can find, I'm going to use a pen. The reason I do that is because the leaves are the biggest. They kind of spread out and go across the image the farthest. So you can see the leaves are the ones that kind of go out the widest. And so if I get this marked on my paper for the leaves so that they will fit, then all of my other masks will, and the flowers will also fit. So beside the notch, I also mark kind of just little the corners. I don't know if you can see that, so that I get a better sense of where everything lines up. Now, here's my notch. There we go. My notch is going to go down in this corner, and then so I'm just going to line up that notch, line up my corners with those lines I made. And then I'm going to put some watercolor, or just some Post-it note tape, just to hold that mask in place. Now, what I want to do at this point is I'm going to start, I've pulled out Flirty Flamingo and a whole bunch of dimensional backs. Flirty Flamingo and Daffodil Delight for my flowers. I'm going to start with the Flirty Flamingo. You know what? I actually want to use, as I'm sitting here, I really want to be using my reinkers. And so now, of course, you can, that's Calypso Coral. Now I have to find my, okay, so there's the Flirty Flamingo. And there is Daffodil Delight. And now I just have to find my Lost Lagoon. Oh, no, that's Coastal Cabana. Summer Splash. I might have to use a different green. I was really hoping to use my Lost Lagoon. Okay, let's use Granny Apple Green. So I'm going to pull out my really big block. You can do this with your stamp pads, but I don't like to get the water into my stamp pad. So I'm just going to mix up some reinker. So a couple of drops of reinker. I tend to start with my lightest color. And then I'm going to take, I've got water in my Stampin' Spritzer. And I'm just going to take my paper away as I spritz my water because it tends to splatter. And then I've got water painters, which also have some water in them. And I'm going to just take a baby wipe. Clean that off a little bit. This has got green, but so with a baby wipe, you can just take it and wipe it until the color comes off. Okay, so we're going to just take. Now I've got my ink, and now I'm just going to take and spritz the watercolor paper. You can do this to start with, but you do get a little better control, I think, if you just do it as you're going. And now I'm just taking and adding the ink to each of the openings on my mask. And because there is water, it will move, hopefully. Some of these are pretty small, so may not have gotten a lot of water. It will be, this image, I will tell you, will be quite abstract because I am getting yellow underneath the mask, and that's okay. But it's kind of fun to see what it actually will turn out like. Okay, so we've got that done. That's, the first one. And you can see that it did kind of spread out a little bit, which is perfectly okay. Don't worry. It all looks like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, but really, there's no right and no wrong with this. And my theory is you just kind of have to let it do its thing, if that makes sense. I'm trying to see the numbers. Can't see what number that is. That's number 3. I want number 2. There we go. Number 2, which is the next biggest. Again, line up your notches, line up your corners. You can see I'm getting some new sections. Is that the one I just did? She says, no, that's number 2. Okay. All right, so now I've done the yellow, so let's clean off my block. And we're going to do the same this time using Flirty Flamingo. And add some water to it. I'm going to add a fair amount of water to this because I want it to be quite light. And I'm also going to take and spritz my paper again. Okay, and then now you're just going to take and go over this with the Flirty Flamingo. So red and yellow make orange, I think. Should know that. I think it's orange. So we're just going to kind of go over, getting the water into the holes. Some of these little holes are quite little. and you can go over the bigger part of your flower if you want it to be a little bit darker, like that. Don't give up on this. Remember, it takes it kind of has to percolate and work. So now it looks like a blob. So this kind of one of those ice or ink block techniques. What do you see in this? Okay. So now I want number 3. I'm going to just, while this is still a bit wet, I'm going to just pick up some of that loose liquid that was underneath here. So I know you guys are going, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Why would I want to do this? But, you know, sometimes techniques like this are kind of fun. You just kind of let go. Now, I'm going to take and add some more of the Flirty Flamingo re-inker so that it is darker. And I'm going to use that to dark. And I didn't spritz. So this hopefully will kind of stay put a little bit more. I see some of it's running a little bit, but that's okay. But hopefully it'll stay put. But it is darker than the Flirty Flamingo that I added on top of that yellow. Okay, we can take that off. Wipe this. So these clean up really well. You can just run them under water when you're done. Okay, so I've got kind of pretty with the yellow and orange and kind of a red color. And I'm just going to try and clean up my re-inker. So just run your re-inker with the water that's in it until it runs clear. So even though the tip of your water painter will still maybe have some color in it, the paint mostly comes out of it, or the ink mostly comes out of it. Okay, so let's wipe that. You definitely need baby wipes or paper towels or something to be cleaning up as you go here. Okay, so now we are going to focus on the leaves. So this is number 4. Okay, and now I'm going to use Granny Apple Green. So I'm only a couple of drops, and then we'll make it darker. And I always have to look to see where the nozzle is, because a fair amount of water in that. And I am going to spritz this paper, because we're getting into sections of the paper that hasn't had any water. So we're just going to pick up the green, and I'm just kind of tapping it. It's wet, so it will actually flow nicely. If it wasn't wet, if I hadn't spritzed it, it would just kind of you'd just be kind of painting in that section. But because it's a bit wet, the water is able to flow a little bit, which is what I like about the watercolor technique. Okay, so that's our number 4. So we'll pick this up and just wipe it off a little bit. And I set that down on something I shouldn't have. Oh my gosh, it's going to make a mess. All right, let's put those over there. I set that down on my Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine, and look what I've done here is I've got ink on my number 2 platform, so I will definitely have to clean this up. Okay, I'm going to have to use that in a minute. Okay, so our last one is the number 5. Okay, and we're going to add a little bit. I want this to be darker because this is the real detail of the leaves. Hey, Amanda. Yeah, oh no, Nancy is right, but I'll clean it off. Of course, I ran out of baby wipes where I filming at the moment, so I have to get some more. All right, so that's kind of, it should be a darker green. And I'm not going to, I'm just going to kind of dab in. Try and pick up some of the darker green. And okay, the fun part of this is you don't have to be exact with it. You can just add the color because it just kind of flows. It's abstract anyway. Get it into the little, like the little sections that show the detail. All right, I think I am done. Let's clean this up for the most part. I'm sure my fingers are all covered with ink because that tends to be what happens. All right, I'm just going to put that over there and clean it in a minute. Oh yes, look at my fingers, are all red. All right, kind of does look like an ink blot, but how pretty is it? I think it's really pretty with that flirty flamingo. And now I need to grab baby wipes because I have a mess going. So you don't want paper around this because it will splatter, the ink will splatter and you will get it all over besides your hands. Okay, and then we can just clean that. All right, so now we've got our background that we're going to do some stamping on. But before we do that, we want to make sure that this is really dry. So I'm just got my heat tool and I'm just going to take this and dry it because we're going to stamp that really pretty flower image, the really big flower image over top of this. And if you stamp it when it is too wet, it will bleed and you don't want that. But you can kind of see where the main part of the flowers are, even though it's very abstract. If it starts to kind of warp, you can turn it over and heat it from the bottom. And just kind of I think that's dry enough. Okay, so grab the really big stamp, and of course I need my big block again. One day when I was playing with this, I thought that StazOn ink would work better, but it did not at all work well. And so now I'm definitely sticking with the Tuxedo Black Memento ink over top. I thought StazOn might not bleed, but it didn't stamp at all. Okay, so now you kind of have to figure this out, arrange it, kind of get it going so I can see that this long point of a flower. Oh, cool, that's fun. This long point of the flower, you just kind of have to move it around until you get your image to line up with the shape. Because remember, it was very abstract. And then we're just going to press down so that we get that tuxedo black pressed into that color. And now I probably could have put a little bit more ink, but you can still see the flower, and that works quite well. So while we're going to let that dry for just a minute or two longer, I'm going to pull out the rest of my pieces for my card. And I'm going to stamp. There's a really long sentiment here. There it is. Find my long block that says, "You make my heart smile," that I really love. And so I've got a piece of basic white that is, I think it's 3/4 of an inch long and probably 4 inches, 3/4 of an inch wide and 4 inches long. I'm just going to stamp that on there. And we can start putting our card together. So I've got a piece of basic black, kind of sticking to my theme of the black on the bright, or the bright colors on the black. So this was 4 1/4 by 11. And scored at 5 1/2, fold into the mountain or the raised line and burnish. And then I took a piece of Flirty Flamingo and I embossed it using the So Swirly embossing folder, which I absolutely love. Get just this nice kind of subtle background. Goes so well with so many different patterns. It's great for anything with water because it kind of has that wavy motion like water, but it works well for flowers too. All right, so that's 4 inches by 5 1/4 of Flirty Flamingo. Now I'm going to take my die. So you need this really large die. So I'm not going to worry about other, here we go, I was looking for post-it note. I'm not going to worry about other leaves and things. I'm just going to have this stamped image on this pretty colored background be the focus of my card. And so I'm going to just take it and cut it. Have to clean that plate because it's really a bright pinky color. All right, look at this, how pretty this is. I love the fact that every time you do this, it looks different. And this kind of the dark Flirty Flamingo in the middle, it's just so pretty. So I'm just going to take some dimensionals. And pop this up. Like that. And then I cut a piece. This is feeling really wide. I cut my piece of basic white that was 3/4 of an inch, but I really only needed a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to take and trim this to be 1/2 inch. There we go. That's better. I don't want to cover up all my flowers. And then I will trim my basic black to be 3/4 of an inch. There we go. So I'm going to take my paper snips. Do you need to use watercolor? Yes, I think so, Amanda, because by the time you do the watercoloring with the water painters 5 times for each of the masks, your paper will be very wet, and basic white paper will not. I don't even think we used to have shimmery white paper. I don't even think that would stand up to that amount of moisture. So the Fluid 100 watercolor definitely works best for this. It gets quite wet, let's just say that, especially if you spritz. Okay, so I'm just going to use dimensionals on this, pop it up, and then I'm going to cut the Italians. That. Like, I'm going to put that down like that. Oh, that's not very straight. Oh well, it's going to have to be. I didn't get my sentiment lined up very straight on my piece of black. Oh well. Okay, so I'm just going to take and put that across like that. And got a piece of basic white. Now, I pulled out, this is the large check. What's it called? Large check ribbon. It's in black and very vanilla, but it goes nicely with white. You can color this with your Stampin' Blends. So I just want quite a little bow. There we go. And ribbon scissors work better. My paper snips always get so, they get glue on them, that they don't work all the time to cut ribbon. So I try and keep some scissors that are just for ribbon. That. And then I pulled out, these are the adhesive backed trio, pearl trio. And so I thought these ones, they're Calypso Coral, I think, but they go nicely with Flirty Flamingo. They've kind of got a bit of a pinky color to them. Look at that. Come on, off my finger. It wants to stay on my finger. Okay, there we go. And now I need something for the inside of the card. What shall we do? Let's see. I've got a little flower, so let's stamp this little flower on the inside of my card using just Tuxedo Black. Like that, just so that there's something on the inside of my card. Some liquid glue. So you could make a few of these up at a time if you wanted to, and then you'd have them for the background. There's my original one. So this was the original one that I did for the team demonstration. And then this is what it looks like. So that one I used white with a bit of black, just a tinge of black. This one I used a black card base. And just the different colors really makes the card look very different. I don't know which one I like. Which one do you guys like best? Any thoughts? I don't know. I think I kind of like the one I did today with the Flirty Flamingo, but they're both really pretty. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. I hope you try that. Don't be scared off by the watercoloring techniques. It's really kind of fun, and once you just kind of let yourself go, and don't worry about what it's going to look like until you get to the end. Yeah, the better. Let's just say that. I like the one. Yeah, I do. That color pops too, Nancy. I think that's why I like it. So try it and post your cards in my group so that I can see what you've done, because I love to see what everybody's doing. All right, everybody, thanks for joining me. Now, Tuesday at 6:30, I will be live with my sketch challenge, so hopefully you'll come and join me then. Have a great day. Happy stamping. Bye.